President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Bill into law. The piece of legislation recognizes the independence and the culture of the Khoi San, but not everyone is happy. Land activists have criticized the bill, saying it gives traditional leaders the right to enter into land use agreements without the consent of the people. Well, let's unpack the story now. Tariq Jenkins from Ikara Restorative Justice Forum joins us from our studios in Cape Town, and here in our Johannesburg studios, Constance Mohale is from Land and Accountability Research Centre. To both of our guests, thanks very much for coming in to talk about what is really an incredibly complicated issue. Constance, let's perhaps start with you here in our Johannesburg studios. I mean, I'm looking at this one opinion here online that says the president has effectively signed away the rights of rural people.
So true, but just to correct you, I am working for the Alliance for Rural Democracy, and the Land and Accountability Research Center is one of the Alliance partners doing research. So I know you took that piece from the immediate article that was released after the signing of this bill. So it is true that this is not about the Khoi San. Because if you look at the way they are treating the Khoi Sans, they're not giving them territory over land. They give traditional leaders, African traditional leaders, who has been recognized long before, preferential treatment in a way that they give them territory over land. So if you live in a certain boundary belonging to a certain traditional leader or the king, you have to abide by that. But for Khoi San people, they giving them territory over people, which is what we wanted for all traditional leaders, because we have to voluntarily affiliate to being a Morolong, a Motswana, or a Zulu. It doesn't matter where the boundaries, it doesn't matter where you work. If you call yourself a Motswana, a Mokhatla, or a Motlong, it doesn't matter where you live, you will still practice those your custom. So it's not about Khoi San leaders, because Khoi San nation, because the languages of the Khoi Sans, the rights of the Khoi Sans over herbs and territory, it is not articulated clearly. It's not about the Khoi San nation, really. It's to recognize few elite leaders who will be registered as or recognized by the premier as and in fact this bill is saying recognition or withdrawal. So traditional leaders must not ululate because the premier or the president is a politically appointed person whose tenure is very limited. So if you don't agree with the premier about any deal, they have the right to withdraw. So this is what happens in Kolobeni, where even in Kala, in the Eastern Cape, where the traditional leader who's recognized by the people and respect the rights of the people is struggling to be recognized by this government.
Constance, let's take the conversation to Cape Town. Our guest, Tariq Jenkins, is there. Tariq, I mean, is this about shoring up the power of unelected and also predominantly male traditional leaders? Is that what this bill is about?
I think one of the primary concerns here is what seems to be an apartheid-era style remodeling of traditional leadership in relation to government structures. And I think it's ostensibly immunizing itself from recommendations of Section 9 institutions such as the South African Human Rights Commission. So the issue of public consultation and its denial is seen throughout this act. And I think one of our concerns is how the democratic functionality in this case will buffer traditional leaders to the point where they will be able to enter into situations which are outside of the current constitution in as far as accountability and transparency in various forms of affairs.
I mean, Tariq, are there any positives to this bill for ordinary people who are affected by the decisions that will be made?
Look, no doubt since 1659, this will be the first time that the Khoi and San are recognized within a Roman Dutch system. And for the first time, we are now operating within a kind of legal framework where we can hope to challenge these kinds of problematic aspects of this current act. It is indeed a huge step towards restorative justice and overall restoration of the Khoi San people.
Would you agree with what Toric Jenkins is saying?
Yeah, yes, partly, because what we said in our recommendation was that Parliament needs to come up with a separate bill to recognize the Khoi San, and not only the Khoi San, there are so many others, the Namas, the Griquas, and without combining it with the current system which recognizes traditional leaders, because if this bill is gonna override all other bills that have recognized traditional leaders before, it is going to sweep under the carpet the mistakes that the current traditional leaders have made. We have seen in Bakhatla Bakafela the Baloyi Commission report, which shows that transparency and accountability has been undermined. No traditional leader has accounted, or even the Auditor General has confirmed that they have not been able to audit the books of these traditional institutions. So accountability measures are going to be swept out. But the fact that the Khoi San people, who are regarded as the First Nation people, don't have the right to claim land through restitution or any land reform, for the fact that they are not given territory or any boundary over land, it is an injustice to them. But, you know, I think they might see it as, well, it's a first step because we are recognized for the first time in history. But there's so much, this rush to pass this bill, there's so much to compromise, and the Khoi Sans are the ones who are standing to lose.
Toric, perhaps as a parting shot from you, I mean, Constance here in studio in Johannesburg with me talks about the rush to finalize this bill. Is this a first step for the people who will be affected by it? I mean, where to from here?
One of the questions that we have to ask is whether or not this is going to be a template for traditional leadership abuse. And this is outside of the belief and a fundamental understanding of any form of restorative justice and recognition of the first indigenous people of this country. And one of the concerns as well is that those who are operating under traditional leadership may be in a situation where their rights as South Africans are compromised in comparison to what would be what is intact now with this act.
Well, thanks very much to both of our guests, to you here in studio, Constance Mohale and Toric Jenkins in our Cape Town studios. The Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Bill signed into law by the President, but certainly not without some massive criticism there.